The founding fathers wanted to do a model city, to design the city with residences and places for business and places for commerce. So they brought John Nolan in, a designer from New York, and he designed and laid out the community. They worked with John quite a lot. He had some ideas, they had some ideas, but they worked out the ideas. And John's idea for the residential area was that they would all be very close to a park, be walking distances, and that people would have a public place in the front of the house and a private place in the back of the house. He also believed that the neighborhood should have an identity, that people would identify with their neighborhoods and like to live there. So I think this subdivision, Park Hill Addition, is living up to that. We have great neighbors and people enjoy each other. We don't sit out in the front yard after supper like people used to when I first moved in here, but still enjoy talking to our neighbors and looking out after them, helping when things are bad, and when things are good, we enjoy each other. So it's a grand neighborhood. It was on historic in 1987, which means the city tries to keep the historic look of the neighborhood. We give up some of our ability to make changes to preserve that. So it's been a continuing work to try to preserve this as the jewel it is in Kingsport. We like to say it's a little green jewel in downtown Kingsport, place to raise a family. In 1916, the houses were built and people started moving in. They were built for the people who were coming to work in the industries in town and the businesses. A lot of the old names you would remember who lived here at the time. It was built before White City. A lot of people from here moved to White City after they were here. I continually run into people whose parents lived here and who remember visiting, friends and family, and playing football and baseball in the park out front. Back when kids played in the yard, you would see, even when I first moved up, we would see kids playing in the park that weren't from here. They would come up and play. I came to Kingsport in 1965, directly out of college at the University of Alabama, working for Tennessee Eastman Company, and drove into town down 11W, which is now Netherland Inn Road. 11W was what is now Center Street, going straight on out to Bristol, out through what is now Colonial Heights. So it was the main road. If you walk straight across the park from the house, there's a public sidewalk that's little known, going between two of the houses on Compton Terrace, that goes directly down to West Sullivan Street, what would have been Supermarket Row. But there were no paved roads when this was built. The only paved road in Kingsport was between the train station and the Kingsport Inn, which is no longer there. The rest was mud and gravel, red clay. So Church Circle is just at the end of West Sullivan. So we're not a stone's throw from the churches. And when I first moved here, it was just a stone's throw to grocery stores, and still to the post office, but there were beauty shops and grocery stores and anything you needed. There were several of my neighbors early on who had never owned a car in this area. They walked to the grocery store and they walked back. The house changed hands a number of times when it was first built, like every year or so. But then Miss Sullivan, the Sullivan family, bought the house, and they lived in this house for about 40 years. So Miss Sullivan had several children, one of which, Dorothy Hale, married and moved across the street and bought a house on the corner. So this was Miss Hale's house. Understandably a delightful person. It's claimed you can still see her ghost in the house. I have never seen this ghost, but people have, and claimed that she's still a friendly person, not a scary ghost. There was a small breakfast nook that had been added to the back of the house, and the foundation wasn't as good as it might have been when the people did the addition, so it started to lean and had to be fixed. And this room is what happened with that fixing. I went a little further than I might have, but we almost doubled the size of the house. Very much enjoy entertaining people in this room. They have a table over there that's called a Parsons table that has enough leaves that pulls out to be 16.5 feet long, fills the space in front of these doors. And it's a glorious sight to see it set for a dinner party. The neighborhoods would build boats for a crazy boat race. And on the Friday before the boat race on Saturday morning, there was a parade of those boats down Center Street, which is what is now the Fun Fest Parade. So the kids would ride on the floats, and then they would get put in the water and race down the river. Gosh, one of my fondest memories is of the early Fun Fest was the first wine tasting we had at the Ramada Inn. And in those days, wine tastings were not normal things to have. So Charlie Large from Sam's Package Store was doing the wine tasting. And they poured quite a lot for each wine to taste, not knowing that you needed to taste just a little. And we tasted a number of wines in a short amount of time. And Charlie later said, I realized after about an hour and a half that I had the biggest bunch of drunks I'd seen ever, and was concerned that we might not all get home. But and then there was the balloon race that morning after that wine tasting. It was a fun time. The city is extremely well managed. We have great financial plans on good, sound financial planning. Nothing's always exactly the way I would like it, but still, we're doing very well. Tennessee Eastman's been a grand partner in the city course. Yes, Eastman several years ago actually requested to be, for a large portion of their plant site that wasn't inside the city limits, they requested to be annexed in order to pay property taxes, which was significant, really. The significant contributor to what happens in Kingsport. Kingsport City Schools, excellent services. Kingsport services, you couldn't ask for better. Grand place to live. I think the thing we need to do in Kingsport, I think the infrastructure, everything else is fine. I think we need to turn back and look at existing neighborhoods and try to rebuild the sense of neighborhood that Nolan foresaw and that I saw living here. I see that going away. It may be something we can't regenerate totally because of modern life. We watch TV, we go other places, we don't stay in our neighborhood. But I think we need to work hard to try to regenerate that sense of neighborhood that was part of the original concept of Kingsport. It's a strong concept that builds a strong community.